Next we'll look at the trim functions. In Postgres, there are three type of trim functions. One is normal trim, other is Rtrim, and then is Ltrim. Trim can be used to replace all specified characters either from the beginning or at the end or both. Rtrim will remove only characters from the right hand side of the string. Ltrim will remove only from the left hand side. So trim can do work of both Rtrim and Ltrim. Let us see how. In the syntax you can see when you write trim in the brackets you have the option of mentioning leading, trailing or both. By default it will be both. If you mention leading, it will function as Ltrim, that is it will remove characters from the left side of the string. If you mention trailing, it will behave as Rtrim, that is it will remove from the right hand side of the string. After mentioning leading, trailing, both, you have to mention the trim character, the character that you want to trim. If you do not mention any character, it will remove only spaces. If you know that it is a particular character, so for example, if you have additional commas or if any other particular character, you can mention that character also. By default, it will be a space. And then you mention the string. The syntax for Rtrim and Ltrim is little different. You first mention the string and then you mention the trim character. So the string comes first, you then mention the character that you want to trim from that string. So trim will mainly be used to clean your data. For example, if your data has been created by inputs from customers and then it tends to have additional spaces in the beginning, in the end. In such cases where your data is not that clean, you can use trim function. If you do not use trim function due to these additional spaces, you will not be able to match the strings. So matching will also be a difficulty with unclean data. So trim will help you clean the data, and if you further want to match the strings, that will also be easier after doing trim on the column name. So if you look at the examples, if I write select trim leading, this is the character space from this string. This is the string StarTech Academy. It has some spaces in the front, some in the back. If you have mentioned leading, it will only remove the leading spaces, which are the spaces which are coming before the string. So it will remove only these spaces. If you mention trailing, it will only remove these spaces, not these spaces. If you mention both, it will remove spaces from both the sides. If you do not mention any of these, by default it will remove from both the sides. If you even do not mention this character, it will still remove the spaces because default character is space. If it had been any other character, you need to mention that particular character. For Rtrim, again when we write this, it will remove spaces from the end. Ltrim will remove spaces from left end. So let us go and write all of these. So we will first trim the leading. So it will be leading. Then we'll mention the space character within single quotes. Then we will mention from, and then we'll give the string. So this can be a string, or you can mention a column name also. So this will remove all the leading spaces from that column values. So let us run this query and see. So if you expand this, you can see there are extra spaces after academy, but the spaces in front of start have been removed. If you change the leading to trailing, and you run this, the spaces in the front are still there, but spaces in the end have been removed. If you write both, spaces from both the sides will be removed. So let's run this, double click. You can see spaces from both the sides are removed. If you remove both also and the character, special character also, it will still run with the default values of both and space, and it will still give us the same result. So you can see we still have the same result with no extra spaces on either sides. Next we will look at Rtrim. So select Rtrim. First mention the string which is Startup Academy with spaces on both the sides. Then after comma mention the character to be trimmed. Let's run this. So you can see that only the right spaces have been removed, the left spaces are still there. If you write Ltrim on this same string, just copy paste it, use Ltrim, you will notice that the spaces in front will be removed, so spaces in the end are still there. So this is trim, Ltrim and Rtrim for you. And just to repeat that trim is a very important function to clean your data and to match those textual columns. So whenever you are joining or matching text using the where clause, do remember to use trim or the upper lower functions whenever you do not have a standardized data.